Hi guys, my name is Laura, and today I'm going to be talking about bracing specifically for powerlifting, specifically for your comp lifts like your back squat and your deadlift when you're lifting heavy weights. So a few things that I commonly see that people do wrong is they mistake just tightness through their core for bracing. The first thing I typically look for is a neutral spine. The common mistake I typically see is people want to keep their chests cranked up and they think that's going to help protect their back. When in reality, if you keep your chest super cranked, it puts a lot of load into your low back. So people commonly tell me when they squat like this that they feel a lot of strain in their lower back. I tell them, let's put our thumbs at the bottom of our rib cage, put your pinkies at the top of your hip bone, so there's that little space in there, and then to go ahead and arch and flex their back. And then they typically will be able to feel the pelvis and the rib cage moving relative to each other. So here's one extreme, here's the other extreme, and we're trying to find somewhere in the middle. When people find this neutral middle position, it's going to feel a lot more like your chest is down relative to this position, right? So I usually will cue rib cage down. Mistakes commonly seen here is I see people try to do this instead. So they try to tuck their pelvis under them. We want to keep this, leave it alone, keep this neutral, and then keep our ribs facing our hips. A good cue I heard once was someone said your ribs are an upside down bowl, and then your pelvis is a right side up bowl. And when you're in neutral, you want those bowls to be looking at each other rather than flaring out one way or the other. So get your bowls stacked up. And then from there, I like to teach to keep the hands on the waist. And you're gonna take a breath into your hands. So notice I'm not breathing just here. I'm breathing out into the sides of my torso. So you're gonna take a nice big inhale and try to feel this part of your core expanding and then breathing out. And I'll typically coach a couple breaths there just to kind of get the feel for the breathing. Now, if you're really struggling getting the breathing into here versus up in here or just here, a couple drills you can do. You can just go ahead and try using a belt. The belt will give you some resistance to breathe against. So even though people often ask me, like, when should I start using a belt? Or is there a certain strength level I should be using a belt? I usually tell people, like, it's a great teaching tool just to use in general. So if you're having trouble figuring out how to breathe here, the belt can be a great tool. Or you can go ahead and go on the floor and then do something called crocodile breaths. So you're gonna be lying all the way on your belly. And then from there, think of a big inhale into your core. Push yourself away from the floor. And then when you exhale, everything pulls in. So once you get your breathing down, that's when you can start thinking about the actual brace part of it. Squeeze around that breath. So you notice you're going to be holding your breath when you brace. A common mistake I see is people will want to breathe throughout the whole movement of their compound lifts, but in reality, you do want to hold that breath to some extent, especially on the eccentric and concentric phases of, say, your squat. You don't want to let that brace go. So you're going to take a big breath in, feel that brace tightening up through your abdominal muscles, and then you're going to go ahead and hit your movement. Exhale at the top, re-brace, squeeze, and drive up. Okay, so I'll show you now with the bar. So here is my powerlifting belt. So you can see it's a pretty weighty piece of equipment. And the purpose of it is to give you something to push against when you brace. So I'm gonna show you kind of how bracing looks with the belt on. So you don't need it super tight, but you do need it snug enough to feel like you can actually feel yourself breathing into. So from here, you take a big breath in, and you can kind of see my middle inflate around the belt. And you can see how my ribs and my hips are stacked. So your brace is going to start even before you get under the bar. So hands on the bar, duck your head under, all that good stuff. You're going to be pushing into the bar, so it's depressing your shoulder blades. You don't want to feel like you're elevating your shoulders into the bar because your shoulders are connected to your rib cage. If you're elevating the shoulders, you're going to be elevating the rib cage, and that's not the point of bracing. You want everything to be pulling down so you can get that nice stack position. So depress the bar into your shoulders. You should feel that downward pressure. Feet under you right here. Find your neutral rib and hip position. Big breath. Squeeze into the core. Brace. Walk it back. From here, you're holding the brace. Little breaths out. One more big breath in, brace. Neutral ribs and hips, and then you're dropping into your squat. And then walking it in. So, common mistakes I see when people are back squatting, them trying to crank the chest up and we don't have that downward pressure onto our shoulders. So that kind of looks like this. So this would be an example of how I'd look to brace incorrectly. So you have the bar on your back, and notice I just place it on my shoulders. I'm not emphasizing that downward pressure. So I find a lot of people tend to place the bar on their shoulders and then they get their chest up. So this is kind of what you don't want to see when you're bracing. So from here, I am tight. Like I feel tight in my upper back. I'm tightening up my abdominal muscles, but you see how I'm not really doing a good neutral position through my back. It's cutting off my depth. I'm not going to be super stable at the top or the bottom of my squat, and this is just not going to be as strong of a position when you load up heavy on a comp squat. Okay, so that's usually how I teach people how to brace for squatting and deadlifting in general. Follow me on Instagram at Lil Laura Lifts for any other powerlifting and general strength training tips and tricks, and I'll see you in the next video.